To be or not to be? That is not the question. For the real question I should be asking myself is, where the fuck did I get this skull from? Hello my lovely Starbites and welcome back to Starfall. And happy Halloween! I'm finally doing my first Halloween themed countdown. Odd how I managed to do a Christmas countdown before coming up with this one. But nonetheless, I'm doing it now. So one game I've really gotten into over the last year and a half is Skul the Hero Slayer. This game is an action roguelike platformer wherein you play as a little skeleton boy on a mission to save the Demon King. And despite its cutesy little demeanor and art style, this game is fucking hard. I'm talking Hollow Knight level difficulty here. So hard that it took me over 30 runs to get past just the first boss, and over 140 until I could finally beat the damn game. But it's still fun, and I highly recommend it. And most of that fun revolves around the central game mechanic of the skulls. You see, the game's main power-ups are these skulls that you can switch out and gain new skills and abilities with. And with there being over 30 skulls at the time of recording this and you being able to equip 2 of them at a time, it can lead to all kinds of chaos. So I'm here to pick out my 10 favorite craniums from this game to praise. Rules? Fuck the rules, this is a roguelike! Bring on the anarchy! So, something I need to break down before we truly get going. The skulls in this game are separated into a couple categories: class and rarity. You have balance, speed, and power classes, with the rarities going from common, rare, unique, and legendary, with you being able to upgrade lower rarity skulls into higher ones. And as you can probably guess, the legendary are fucking insane. And if played right, each legendary skull can let you destroy everything. Except for the hunter. That one is straight up garbage. And the first one on our list is pretty much the quintessential legendary skull you would expect to be in this game.
Your soul is mine.
So yeah, this game allows you to play as the Grim Reaper. And this being at the bottom of the list should foretell you what insanity is yet to come from this game. So playing as Death itself is a lot of fun. You're given a big fuck-off scythe to decimate baddies with, and all the skills you're given are pretty fun too. Summoning guillotines, portals to hell, and wisping past enemies to damage them. But to be honest, the reason Grim Reaper made this list is the passive and central ability. You see, despite being given a physical scythe, all of the Grim Reaper's attacks deal magic damage. And that's because every enemy you kill has a chance to drop a soul that automatically gets absorbed by you. And for every soul you have, you gain a buff to your magic power. And unlike the many skills with the other skulls, this soul buff is permanent, and after collecting enough souls, your skills become supercharged too. As long as you have the Grim Reaper active, your magic power grows to absolutely ridiculous levels. But that's also why it's here at the bottom. In order to fully benefit from Grim Reaper, you have to find it really early on. If you don't manage to find it by the time you're halfway through the second level, it's pretty much worthless. And to put it into a bit more perspective, I have done well over 200 runs of this game, and I've only been able to find the Grim Reaper early on a total of 5 times. But every time I had gotten it early on, it carried me all the way to the final boss. It's essentially the ultimate snowball skull, starting out the size of a baseball before eventually becoming the avalanche scene in Mulan. When things roll in my favor, it's a power trip I can't get enough of. So, while the Rogue has never been my favorite D&D class, they are a lot of fun and I do like the archetype in general. Being a master of the shadows, sneaking in and out, stealing the loot, and zipping out of the way to avoid danger. And this skull capitalizes on that exact feeling. So starting the theme of speed skulls, we have the Thief. Thief is all about moving through the level and cutting down those who oppose you, and its entire kit helps you out with this. You're given smoke bombs to roll out and avoid taking hits, a heavy hitting attack that can destroy most enemies instantly, and
teleports behind you.
But best of all is the passive skill that comes with the skull that is beneficial to your entire run. Keeping with the name, every time you hit and or kill an enemy, you take money from them. And that includes the skills. You know that Robin Hood mentality of steal from the rich, give to the poor? Well, with Thief, you kill the rich and then blow up other rich people with the money you stole, which is incredibly fun, stupid, and something I never get tired of. But most importantly, in a game with 3 forms of currency where only one of them builds up over repeated runs, the Thief's Skull is super helpful in building up your gold stash in order to buy food for healing, quintessences to cast spells, and all other assortment of items that can make your run even better. Seriously, there really is never a reason not to pick up the Thief's Skull, especially since it's so common and probably the most useful out of all the skulls. Watch the shadows out there, folks.
All right, everyone. Chill.
If I had the nickel for every time I used Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze in a video game countdown, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right?
If the Grim Reaper was this game's metaphorical ultimate snowball, the Frost Skull is the literal ultimate snowball. And also similar to Grim Reaper, Frost deals only magic damage through melee attacks. So before I continue, there are several different status effects in this game you can get from collecting items. Some skulls can naturally cause these effects too. And while bleeding may be the most effective one, the freezing effect is not only satisfying, it is empowering. Because you can freeze an enemy and bosses at almost any time, including in the middle of their attacks. So it's great for repositioning, retreating, or just wanting to get in that extra bit of damage to kill them. And even though the Frost Skull is categorized as a balanced skull, it has that sense of speed that I still love. Its basic attacks have some good DPS, but more importantly, most of its skills have almost no windup to them, and cause the freezing effect upon activation. And all of them are fun to use. Summoning ice spikes, a charge attack that has some excellent area of effect, and all of this is without the items that can boost your freezing powers to even more ludicrous levels. The base chance of freezing enemies with the Frost Skull is 3%. Get yourself the right loadout and you turn all who oppose you into popsicles with every other swing. It's addicting, I'm not gonna lie. Get ready for a cold spell, because once it hits, no one survives. We've talked about balanced skulls, a speed skull. Now it's time to talk about our first power skull. And despite the power skulls being my least favorite, there are some good ones. Gravedigger, Shield, Ghoul, Berserker, all fun to use and valuable in their own ways. But for this entry, I think Bruce Lee said it best.
Be formless, shapeless, like water.
Remember when I said back in my Kirby countdown about water being an element of balance? How it can be used both offensively and defensively? Well, throw that out the window, because Water Skull is a pure offensive powerhouse. Ironically, and correct me if I'm wrong, this skull is the only power skull that solely does magic damage. Funny, huh? Similar to the Grim Reaper and Thief, the best thing about water is its passive and central ability. Every time you hit an enemy, you build up this little meter at the bottom of the screen, and when it fills up, you spit out waves of water that travel along the ground, dealing damage to everything it comes in contact with. And if you can get yourself a horde of enemies to build up that meter, you create an awe-inspiring ocean of continuous damage. Use it well enough and some baddies won't be even able to get near you before dying to your waves. And then we have to take into account the skills you get, because all of them are wonderful. A dive that lets you avoid hits before delivering an uppercut, a watery tornado with some great vertical damage, but my personal favorite is the Lake of Spirits, allowing you to build up your meter by just standing in it. Then you have to take into account that it just looks cool. You're a skeleton in a body of water decking knights into oblivion, and when you get into your final form, called Poseidon, well...
Damn, boy, he's cool!
I immediately regret that joke. Next entry, please. I love learning about mythology. In middle school, Greek myths were my jam. I love the Percy Jackson series, the Kane Chronicles, and just learning about myths tickled my fancy a lot. Whether it be Norse, Greek, Egyptian, Shinto, I just love the stories. And over the last couple of years, I have gotten really into Journey to the West. So when I saw there was a skull added to the game that was based on Sun Wukong, my hype somersaulted to the edge of the universe. Did you get it? Did you get that reference? You see, it's because Sun Wukong actually... Never mind, just continue the entry. Sun Wukong is one of my favorite mythic heroes. And while the version of him in Skul isn't exactly one-to-one, I mean, if it was, this game could be beaten in 5 minutes, it's still a very fun interpretation. You're given a staff that has a fairly decent attack combo to take on enemies, and all the skill attacks are centered around it. You have one that stretches the staff and slams it on the ground, a flurry attack, long-range jabs, and my personal favorite one being where you turn the area around you into a fucking blender. Then we look at the special gimmick this skull gets. Those of you who are familiar with the abilities of Sun Wukong know that one of his signature powers is the ability to clone himself. And you can do exactly that here. The more you hit enemies with your staff, the more you build up this little meter. Press down and spend 20 points to pop out a clone of yourself. Starting out, these things are only good for a tiny bit of crowd control and extra damage, but as you get your upgrades, the clones get better and better, to the point where they last 10 seconds each and copy your attacks, including your skills, meaning you can have up to 6 blenders going off all at once. What else can I say? You're playing as a skeletal version of Sun Wukong. You don't need a better selling point than that.
Gentlemen, behold. Are you ready to rock?
If you had to ask, what is the fucking goofiest, most out of left field skull that can be found in this game? All the answers point to this. The sheer concept of this alone could get it in the honorable mentions. And then everything else that comes along with it is what brought it here to number 5. So, Rockstar is a magic speed skull that deals damage through strumming the guitar, and the more you play, the more powerful it becomes. And everything in this skull's arsenal is about keeping the music alive. You get an electric power slide that offers good mobility, a guitar solo that helps boost up your music meter faster, one skill that lets you straight up Jimi Hendrix enemies over the heads. But the best skill that you always get with this skull is the amps. You are given up to 3 amps that you can place down at once that send out shockwaves damaging everything around it. Which is not only excellent for dealing with waves of enemies, it also shreds bosses' health bars down. My god, do I love this thing. Which saddens me to not be able to put it higher. You see, the biggest flaw to the Rockstar is that it relies entirely on button mashing. You have to spam the attack button continuously or lose every bit of the meter you had up to that point. Even the act of jumping can throw off your groove.
I'm sorry, but you've thrown off the Emperor's groove.
That, and Rockstar offers nothing in terms of range, meaning you are going to get hit a lot. Now, you may think that it may deserve to be lower, but that's because I haven't revealed this skull's trump card. Because it has something almost none of the other skulls have. A super move. It has a semi-long cooldown, but whenever you build up your music meter to completion, you get this. My god, do I love this game.
Bombs? You want it?
That might just be the fastest, most clusterfuck beginning to an entry I've ever done. Which is also the best way to describe the bomber. I mean, do I really need to say anything here? If I have to be entirely honest, Bomber really shouldn't have gotten this high on the list. But that's other people's problems, isn't it? Don't worry, I know just how to solve them. So the Bomber is not the best skull in the game. In fact, being able to use it in combat efficiently is a bit of a hassle. But that won't stop me from trying. I'm never gonna get tired of that. It isn't built as much for combat as it is for starting it. Ironically though, with the new hard mode that came out a while ago as free DLC, I discovered that the bomber is actually the meta for the later levels in that mode. You see, whenever you switch to it, you only have 5 seconds until it explodes and forcibly swaps you to the other skull you have. According to the demonic directory of demolitions, the bomber skull works thusly. Step 1, swap. Step 2, Step 3,
Profit!
and that's the beauty of it. It works great for wanting to either take on a huge swarm of smaller enemies or get burst damage off on big baddies. And there is a lot of lovely little additives if you have the right run. You see, every skull has an ability or an attack that is used upon swapping. There are also items that work upon swapping too. And since the bomber skull pushes you towards switching between your skulls when you use it, you can maximize that burst damage to amazing effects. Though to be blunt, the only reason it made it this high is because I find it really funny. It's even more fun if you get that ability that lets you extend the fuse time in exchange for more damage, or the skill that lets you detonate it at will. Simple and clean. Just the way I like it. So, I'm sure the people who have played this game have noticed something. And that being the great majority of my list is speed skulls. Hell, out of the 10 I picked, only 2 power skulls are on here. Water is my second favorite. And this entry contains my favorite power skull. And, it may be kind of obvious who it is. Behold, one of the most broken things in any game ever. I'm not even exaggerating. So the reason I'm not the biggest fan of the power skulls are the drawbacks. The majority of power skulls are slow, get hit often, and need a lot of work in order to really be useful. The Predator has literally none of these issues. And now I know what you're thinking. Surely the Predator has some balancing, right? No. This thing is a Spartan soldier dunked in the river Styx. This is quite literally the most powerful skull in the game. 0 weaknesses.
What does it do?
Excellent question, Random Phineas and Ferbclip. Every skill it has is excellent at dispatching enemies, and each one can be spammed continuously up to 5 times. 5! With only 1 cooldown. To paint a clearer picture of this, the Gravedigger skills can be used up to 3 times, and you have to wait for a cooldown for each individual use. And when I said all of them are good, I do mean all. You have one that slingshots you forward as you attack, one that turns you into the world's deadliest Beyblade, one that is pretty much the Hurricane attack from Wind Waker, and my personal favorite one where you play whack-a-mole with your giant fucking meat cleavers.
But wait! There's more!
Then you have its swap ability, where it slows down time. No joke, when you switch into Predator, all of the enemies on screen get slowed down, allowing you to do whatever the fuck you want. But this final thing is the clincher of insanity, because just like the Grim Reaper, Predator's passive is beyond insane. Every time you kill an enemy, you get a temporary boost, and this bonus stacks up to 25! And there are many levels in this game where it's just a long hallway and a horde of enemies. Can you see why I love this thing? This is a hard game, but when you have Predator, it's like you're playing on normal difficulty, and sometimes all you need is a good rush. Oh my god.
Let's ride!
Do you ever just see something and it clicks in your mind almost immediately? I'm gonna have fun with this. This game is full of all kinds of references to popular media. I just talked about the Predator. There's another skull that is straight up the character from Dead Cells. There's one enemy that is based off of Frieza from Dragon Ball Z. And one of the items you can get is literally just the Pot of Greed from Yu-Gi-Oh! Oh, and this? They straight up stuck a palette-swapped version of Marvel's Ghost Rider in the game. You don't get the penance stare, but what you do get is pretty great. First and most importantly, the motorcycle. Most skulls get their skills randomly picked, but Rider is one of the few that always has its signature ability. While riding it, your speed is naturally faster, but you can also run over everything in your path. It's a bit tricky to handle at first, but when you do, Then the rest of the moveset focuses on fire and chains. You can do a dash, leaving a big wave of fire behind you, and even hit an enemy with a chain and drag them behind you. And the upgrades just make it better in every way. You start leaving a trail of flames everywhere you go, your chains do more damage, and whenever you finish riding the bike, it will comically fling into the air before exploding. And all of the other skills become altered while on the bike. But the creme de la flame comes with its legendary upgrade. That just brings a smile to my face. Honestly, I don't know what else to say. All of these things together make Rider my favorite speed skull in the game. And yet, there is still one I love more. But first, there were a lot of skulls in this game, so I want to do some honorable mentions. This one is fun, a bit cumbersome though. Also great at killing swarms of enemies. I needed a bit more time with this one. I do like decking people with it though. Another power skull that ended up being a little too slow for my personal liking. Also just throwing them individually, Hamlet, Macbeth, Othello, King Lear. Very fun, very powerful, but extremely one note and gets boring after a while.
Use fireball and only fireball. Nothing but fireball. Just fireball. Just fireball. Just fireball.
Truth be told, I actually don't like this one that much. I only have it on here because I couldn't pass up that joke. This is a fun one, and in the end you become this neon green flaming beast that can dash like there's no tomorrow.
Clowns. Clowns.
So this skull is very boring, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't useful. It's also the one I beat the game with for the first time, so it earns an honorable mention. So I have to tell the truth. I'm actually surprised how much I've grown to love this game. Because I have never been super into roguelikes unless they have a fun twist to them like Crypt of the Necrodancer. The reason why is that you have to overly rely on RNG, and that can get increasingly frustrating every time I try to play one. Having to put all your faith and luck just gets annoying. Every time I start a run in Skul, I have to ask myself, do I feel lucky? I know, the irony isn't lost on me. For those who have actually played this game, you may be wondering, if they hate RNG so much, then why in the fuck is their number one pick the only skull in the game that is entirely themed around RNG? And for those of you who haven't played it, you didn't hear me wrong. The gambler, hence its name, is completely reliant on random chance for everything it does. And despite the fact that I despise randomness in video games, I can't help but love the gambler skull. And when I say everything it does, I do mean everything. The entire basis of this skull is that all of its powers, skills, and even its basic attack have a lot of luck to them. Every one of them has a chance of either being a dud of an attack, or a super move that does Phil Swift levels of damage. And all of it is bundled up into this casino cowboy theme of a fighter. The basic attack has you throwing playing cards with a chance of throwing a joker card that could explode. His swap-in skill is a slot machine that can give a variety of outcomes. And his activated skills make it even more fun. Throw out a shower of cards, roll dice that summon a rain of darts, a roulette wheel that can just explode, and the funniest one, playing Russian roulette.
Let's do that again. That one didn't count.
How are you alive?
Cause it didn't count. I go again.
And what's crazy about it is that none of these are really bad. Even when you land on the dud attacks, none of them put you at a disadvantage or hurt you. They're just kind of meh. But mostly, I love this skull because it is pure chaotic fun. When I get the gambler, I just go with the flow and let the roll of the dice decide how my game goes. And in a game where you deal with a lot of bullshit coming your way, having this bit of extra fun is like a beautiful dose of medicine. And with that, we have come to the end. All of you Starbites have a good night, and happy Halloween.